A note on sourcing. This script is built from verified interviews, official filmographies, and mainstream entertainment reporting. Where a claim could only be traced to unconfirmed tabloid insider reporting, it is identified as such rather than presented as fact. There are friendships in Hollywood that exist for the cameras, and there are friendships that simply exist. Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott have spent more than 50 years proving they belong to the second category. Two tall men with matching mustaches, matching affection for the American West, and a matching allergy to the industry's need to perform closeness for an audience. And in December 2024, at the exact moment his 14-year run on Blue Bloods was ending, Tom Selleck said something about Sam Elliott that didn't sound like a press quote at all. It sounded like the truth, finally said out loud. Long before either man was famous, they were both just working actors trying to get noticed on a Western television series called Lancer. In a 1969 episode titled Death Bait, a young, clean-shaven Tom Selleck appeared in his first-ever television role, and in that same episode, Sam Elliott, also without his now signature mustache, played a minor part as well. Neither man had the presence yet that would define them. They were simply two more faces in a crowded industry, unaware that they were standing at the beginning of something that would outlast nearly everything else in their careers. Selleck's road to that soundstage had been an unlikely one. Born in Detroit in January 1945, he moved with his family to Sherman Oaks, California, as a child, and grew up more interested in basketball than acting. He attended the University of Southern California on a basketball scholarship, majoring in business, and only drifted toward performing because he needed an easy class. What started as a college elective turned into training under acting coach Milton Katsilas, small television roles, and eventually a film debut in the strange, cult curiosity Myra Breckenridge in 1970. Elliott's path started differently but arrived at a similar place. Born in Sacramento in August 1944, he was raised largely in Portland, Oregon, the son of a father who worked for the U.S. Department of the Interior. He studied at the University of Oregon before turning fully to acting, making his film debut in 1967's The Way West. Where Selleck had a certain polish, Elliott carried something rawer, a voice and a bearing that felt like they belonged to an earlier American era, even though he was only in his 20s. By the time the two of them shared that episode of Lancer, they were already, by Selleck's own account years later, becoming friends. In a 2021 interview with True West magazine, Selleck reflected on those early days and described Elliott as the more settled of the two, someone who already seemed to know exactly who he wanted to be as an actor, while Selleck was still figuring it out. Friendship built on a few days of shared studio time is fragile. What turned Selleck and Elliott's connection into something durable was a full decade later, when they were cast alongside actor Jeff Osterhage as the title characters in The Sackets, a 1979 NBC miniseries adapted from Louis L'Amour's novels The Daybreakers and Sackett. The three actors played brothers from Tennessee heading west after a family tragedy, and making that story convincing meant weeks of shared horseback riding, shared dust, and shared exhaustion. It worked. 3 years later, the trio reunited for The Shadow Riders, a 1982 CBS Western in which Elliott and Selleck once again played brothers. This time a Confederate soldier and a Union officer reunited after the Civil War, searching for kidnapped family members. Both projects were adaptations of Louis L'Amour novels, and both gave two actors who genuinely liked each other a reason to keep working together at a formative point in their careers. What makes the timing notable is what was happening around Selleck at that exact moment. Magnum P.I. had premiered on CBS in December 1980 and was turning him into one of the most recognizable faces on American television. That he chose, in 1982, to go back to a modest Western television production with his old friend, rather than chase only the highest-profile opportunities available to him, says something about where his priorities sat even then. The years that followed sent the two men down very different professional roads. Selleck's fame accelerated quickly. Magnum P.I. ran for 8 seasons and made him a genuine star, earning him a Golden Globe and, in 1985, an Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series. Then came 1987's 3 Men and a Baby, which became the year's highest-grossing film in North America. For a stretch of the 1980s, Selleck was one of the most famous actors in the country, a status he has described, with characteristic understatement, as something he never set out to chase. He has said repeatedly in interviews that he simply wanted steady work as an actor, not stardom. Elliott's career moved at a different pace. He continued building a reputation as one of the most dependable character actors in the business, appearing in Mask, 1985, Roadhouse, 1989, and Tombstone, 1993, in which he played Virgil Earp opposite Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer. He was consistently working and consistently respected, but the leading man scale of opportunity that had opened up for Selleck didn't arrive for Elliott in quite the same way, not until decades later. What kept the friendship alive through that divergence wasn't proximity. It was, by most accounts, shared temperament. Neither man built his identity around the more performative sides of celebrity. Selleck purchased a 63-acre ranch in Ventura County, California, in 1988 and has spoken for decades about preferring ranch life over industry events. Elliott, married to actress Catherine Ross since 1984, has kept a comparatively low public profile of his own. Two men who didn't need red carpets to sustain a friendship simply didn't lose it when their careers stopped running in parallel. In the 1990s, both continued building. Selleck ended Magnum, P.I. in 1988 and moved into film work, later taking a recurring role as Dr. Richard Burke on Friends in the mid-1990s, a part that, decades later, would introduce him to an entirely new generation of streaming viewers. Elliott, meanwhile, added Tombstone and Gettysburg to his resume and became one of the most recognizable voices in American media, lending his distinctive baritone to commercials, documentaries, and narration work for years afterward. The most significant turn in Elliott's later career came in 2021, when he was cast as Shea Brennan in 1883, Taylor Sheridan's Western prequel to Yellowstone. The role introduced Elliott to Sheridan's massive audience and earned him a Screen Actors Guild Award nomination for Outstanding Performance by a Male Actor in a Drama Series. Critics and fans alike pointed to the performance as some of the most powerful work of his career, proof that a great actor can still find his richest material well into his 70s. Selleck noticed. In December 2024, as Blue Bloods aired its series finale after 14 seasons on CBS, Selleck sat down for a cover interview with Parade magazine. Asked directly whether he'd want to work with Taylor Sheridan alongside his old friend, Selleck didn't hedge. "Sam was great in 1883, he told the magazine. "We go way, way back. I love him dearly. I'd love to work with Sam." It's a short quote, but it's worth sitting with. Selleck wasn't asked to describe his feelings about Sam Elliott. He was asked a logistical question about a hypothetical future project. And the answer he gave went straight past the logistics into something plainly personal. There was no hedge, no publicist's careful phrasing. Just a direct statement from a 79-year-old actor, at the exact moment he was closing the biggest chapter of his career, about who still mattered to him. That Blue Bloods chapter was enormous. Selleck played NYPD Commissioner Frank Reagan for 14 seasons and 275 episodes, becoming the anchor of one of CBS's longest-running dramas. The show's finale aired December 13, 2024. For an actor who had spent over a decade inside that role and that routine, its end marked a real transition, one he discussed candidly in that same Parade interview, admitting he wasn't sure what would come next, while expressing hope for another Western and specifically for a project with Sheridan and Elliott. In the months following Blue Blood's conclusion, several entertainment outlets, most notably the tabloid Radar Online, published reports claiming that Selleck had gained weight and withdrawn from his usual routines, and that Elliott, concerned for his old friend, was reaching out to reconnect and help him find his footing again. These claims were attributed only to unnamed insiders and have not been corroborated by Selleck, Elliott, or any outlet with on-the-record sourcing. It would be irresponsible to present that narrative as confirmed fact, so it's worth naming clearly here. Interesting as it is, it remains unverified tabloid reporting, not established reporting. What is verifiable is this. Selleck published a memoir, You Never Know, in October 2024 through HarperCollins, co-written with Ellis Henneken. In it, according to reviews and excerpts that have circulated publicly, Selleck reflects on the friendships that mattered most to him across his career and life, and Sam Elliott is among the names he singles out. That alone tells you something. A memoir is a space where a person gets to choose, deliberately, who belongs in the story of their life. Selleck chose to make room for Elliott in his. Strip away the speculation, and what remains is still a genuinely remarkable Hollywood story. Two actors who met as unknowns in 1969 built a real bond, making Western television together in 1979 and 1982, watched their careers diverge wildly through the 1980s and 1990s, and are still, as of 2024 and 2025, publicly and privately connected enough that one calls the other a friend he loves dearly, decades later, without prompting. Part of what has made it durable is what both men have consistently avoided. Neither has built a career on shock value or reinvention for its own sake. Both have leaned into roles that reward the specific kind of screen presence that comes from age and stillness rather than flash, the very quality that made Elliott's performance in 1883 land as powerfully as it did, and that Selleck has said he hopes to keep finding for himself. There's a kind of professional respect embedded in that shared approach, the sense of two actors who watched each other choose steadiness over spectacle for 50 years and came away impressed by it. There's also the simple matter of time. Friendships forged in your 20s, before either party has anything the other needs, tend to be judged more honestly than the ones built after fame arrives. Selleck and Elliott had no reason to manufacture a bond in 1969. They weren't useful to each other yet. Whatever grew between them on that Lancer set, and later in the saddle for the Sacketts and the Shadow Riders, grew because they simply got along, and that kind of foundation tends to hold up better than anything built for strategic advantage. As of mid-2026, no Taylor Sheridan project pairing Selleck and Elliott has been announced. Selleck, now 81, has floated the idea publicly more than once, and Elliott's continued presence in the Sheridan universe through 1883 keeps the possibility alive in fans' minds, even without confirmation from either camp. Whether or not it happens, the story doesn't actually depend on it. The friendship was never really about the projects. The Westerns were simply where it started, and where it kept finding excuses to keep going. What Selleck said to Parade in December 2024 wasn't a calculated career move or a plug for a project that doesn't exist yet. It was a man in his late 70s, closing out the defining role of his career, choosing to say plainly what he felt about someone who had been there since before any of it began. 55 years after two unknown actors shared a scene on a low-budget Western television series, that's still the through line. Not the shows, not the fame, but the people who were there before any of it started, and stayed. Sources referenced: Parade Magazine, December 2024 cover interview, True West Magazine, 2021, Wikipedia and IMDb filmography records for Lancer, the Sacketts, and the Shadow Riders, Screen Actors Guild Awards records, HarperCollins publication records for You Never Know, 2024. Unverified tabloid claims regarding Selleck's health and Elliott's private outreach are identified in the text as